what exactly should users tune their experience to be to get the best results on more performance-constrained kit here?
Well, basically, it's kind of following the optimization guideline as shown by the PlayStation 5's performance mode and or just generally what they do on PlayStation 5. For example, the most important setting actually is dynamic resolution scaling. Now, it isn't perfect. It doesn't keep up with everything all the time, but the game was designed around it quite obviously. So that should be the number one thing you have on if you're going to do optimized settings. They have things like chromatic aberration and vignette. I turned them off for my footage because I didn't actually like them. But there's another strange thing in the game where there's an option called graphical fidelity, which actually just changes the game's level of detail. And here, Mohammed was looking at this for us. He found that it was like a custom setting, like a mix of medium, high, and low, depending upon what things you're looking at. But the medium setting here did offer roughly a 3% uplift in performance in his measurements. And low would even increase that further, but is just like a bridge too far kind of thing. So that definitely keep that to medium here. Texture quality, I play the game on an 8GB GPU. I did not notice any issues with the highest texture quality, even while outputting the game at 1440p resolution. And here, interestingly, Mohammed noted that the game appears to be using the mid setting on PlayStation 5. So they are apparently having a reduced texture quality there for some reason on PlayStation 5. Can't exactly describe as to why, but things like anisotropic filtering are obviously lower on PS5 too. So for something like terrain detail, very little difference performance here between the settings. Just keep that to high. Shadow quality, this is probably one of the most expensive aspects of this game. And, this game made a very bespoke shadowing system to get high quality shadows up close to the camera and give them like really plausible look. And here, Mohammed found that the PlayStation 5 version, based upon the shadow cascades in the distance, uses a custom value, not even capable to be made on PC. It's like lower than the lowest in the distance, but the close-up stuff is high. So here he recommends the mid setting, which offered about a 6.5% uplift in performance in this scene, which I think is reasonable, and it doesn't actually look too different, actually. Things like water quality, clutter density, NPC quality, the differences are minor and not very important and didn't affect performance that much. So just keep them at high. And then the rest of the settings are things that I don't think are very good settings in general. Like, for example, screen space reflections, ambient occlusion, bloom shader, and variable rate shading, where in the case of something like screen space reflections, turning them off leads to a radically different game, even though you're getting a somewhat performance improvement there, but that's like a loss in visual quality that is not worth it for a modern PC. I wish those settings were bloomed out into low, medium, and high, but they didn't do that. It's just on and off. And variable rate shading, Mohammed couldn't find a difference there. It doesn't appear to be tier 2 VRS, and it wasn't a very important setting apparently. So it could be like a tier 1 thing where it applies to only certain objects in the game, but it's really hard to know without going searching. And in this case, it would have been great to have a description of what the setting does so people know what it does. In the end, all of the settings kind of look like this. You want to keep graphical fidelity to medium, texture quality high, terrain detail high, shadow detail mid, water quality high, clutter density high, NPC quality high, screen space reflections on, and all those ambient occlusion on, etc., and then VRS off. It didn't really seem to do too much. So the thing you got to lean on, though, is dynamic resolution scaling. Everything else is actually not too important.
Yeah, it's sort of a funny game in the sense that I actually find it a little bit refreshing, to be honest, to see a settings menu that isn't bombarded with superlatives and isn't telling me this is the epic setting, the extreme setting, the ultra high fidelity setting, the unobtainium setting, the nightmare, ultra nightmare setting. I could go on and on. I am refreshed by it, but at the same time, like, if you're gonna offer a screen space reflection toggle, like, does it really make sense to go between like a functional looking screen space reflection and none at all? It just seems sort of funny. Likewise with ambient occlusion, where if you turn it off, it's just going to make your game look like crap. So why would you, I don't know, at that point, almost why expose it? But it is an interesting little outcome there. But one common with a fair number of games, most of these settings don't do too much. The ones that do something don't actually buy you that much performance. And in general, I think you should probably look to mostly retain that PS5 feature set and mostly stick with the higher settings options, lean on upscaling, lean on DRS, and try to get acceptable performance that way.